Are you tired of overpaying for your gold, silver, and platinum bullion coins and bars? Then visit sdbullion.com today. SD Bullion was recently named the 177th fastest growing company in the United States by Inc. magazine. This is because they offer the absolute lowest prices in the industry and follow up with over-the-top customer service. So what are you waiting for? Go to sdbullion.com today and join more than 60,000 happy investors that save money on every precious metals purchase they make.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with silverdoctors.com, and with us today is Marc Faber, editor and publisher of the Gloom, Boom, and Doom Report. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you.
All right. On this week's SD Metals and Markets Wrap, I really appreciate that you were able to come on today. We also have James Anderson co-hosting with us today. The first topic I'd like to discuss is the China and U.S. trade war that seems to be developing. What is your perspective? Do you think it can get worse from here and a real trade war actually will develop?
Well, I doubt that we'll get as far as a real trade war, because I believe that the U.S. will realize that actually it has more to lose than China. For China, the exports to the U.S. are meaningful, but they're not as important as they would have been 40 years ago. When I went to Hong Kong in 1973, until the end of the 1980s, the saying was, if America sneezes, Asia catches a cold, because up to 70% of Asian exports went to the U.S. directly or indirectly. But this is no longer the case nowadays. In Asia, the largest trading partners are actually Asian countries. All Asian countries export more to China than to the U.S., with the exception of India. And globally, China exports more to commodity producers and to countries that have a free trade agreement with China than to the U.S. So the U.S. is still an important trading partner, but it's no longer the most important trading partner.
Hi, Dr. Faber. I just wanted to ask your thoughts. I know this is more of a short-term question. There's a lot of people out there who are U.S. dollar bullish, at least in the short to medium term. They think that there's going to be a rebound. I know last year it devalued 10% versus other large trading fiat currencies. Do you see any type of rebound in the DXY? And if so, why potentially?
Well, there has been a big long position in euros and the short position in US dollars in recent weeks. And obviously, just the talk about the trade war leads to essentially the dollar strengthening. But I don't think this strength will last very long, because when you think about it, the US under Mr. Trump would actually like to make America great again. In other words, he wants to make America more competitive. Trump is complaining about the weakness of other currencies in the world. In other words, in his view, the dollar is too strong compared to other currencies in the world. I'm not sure he can think that far, but anyway, that is the implication. So the last thing the U.S. administration wants today is to have a strong dollar, because that makes the U.S. even less competitive. So I think that the dollar may strengthen maybe for another month or two, and then eventually weaken again as it becomes obvious that the other countries, with or without tariffs or a trade war, remain very competitive.
Now, as for the stock market, do you believe that Asian stocks or specifically Chinese stocks, are you more bullish on them than the U.S. stocks?
Yes, in the very long run. But I think I believe we've seen a high for the U.S. stock market and global markets essentially on January 26, 2018, with the S&P at 2,872. We're now approximately 200 points lower than we were at the time. Now, the market is unlikely to crash, in my opinion. But what could easily happen is a market decline as we had between 1969 and 1982. We didn't collapse in those days, although we had a major bear market between January 1973 and December 74, almost 2 years. But we didn't have really a crash. It was just sliding a slope of hope where markets would go down and then rebound, and they would go down lower and then rebound and go down even more and so forth. I think that may be a scenario that may unfold.
Hey, Dr. Faber, I'm looking at a chart that has the Dow Gold ratio for 100 years, and I'm looking at that time point that you discussed from 69 to 1982, roughly. It looks like the Dow Gold ratio back then it reached at a point about 1.4 or so at the peak in January 1980. Now the Dow obviously is not the greatest measure of the stock market because it's 30 rotating companies that get changed out all the time depending on how well they're doing. I think GE is the only one that's still around from the original inception of the.
Yes.
Right.
It's barely around.
Right. It's been a terrible stock. That's true. But I'm just looking. Even the S&P 500 gold ratio. Right now we're around just 2 or so, roughly S&P versus gold. But in 1980 it hit 0.2. So if we went back to a situation where it was like 1980, that's a 10 multiple of gold versus S&P 500. Do you foresee that happening? Let's say in the 2020s, possibly. Is that potential something that could be the peak of this?
Well, I could easily foresee that happening again, in the sense that the S&P would grossly underperform gold in the years to come. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But the point is, it may not happen right away. I think it may happen in future, but it may take maybe a few years until we're there.
Right.
Because the belief right now among investors is very strongly geared towards equities globally, and especially towards among young investors, it's geared towards cryptocurrencies. So at the moment, gold and silver are not particularly popular among young investors. But I think this will change, especially when a major fraud will be revealed in the crypto space, that people will lose faith in cryptos as a store of value, and that they will again buy gold. I mean, my advice is, I don't know when gold will go up. I suppose it will go up relative to other assets. Now, there's one point I need to clarify here. Everybody thinks that asset inflation, as we had essentially since 1981 for bonds rallied since 1981, September 81, and equities, August 82. Equities rallied over the last 30, 40 years. Real estate prices went up, art prices went up, collectibles went up, and so on. So people and investors are conditioned that this will continue. They may have some arguments about which assets will perform the best, but they think that this asset inflation will continue. But I'd like to introduce an element where maybe all assets will go down and gold would go down far less than other assets, or maybe even increase in value. That is a possibility.
So you're essentially...
Hello? Yes?
Sorry to cut you off, but you're essentially saying an extremely deflationary scenario.
I'm talking here not necessarily about a huge price deflation, but I'm talking here about a huge asset inflation, where asset prices really tank. That is a possibility. Because don't forget, and this is a subject that is not discussed all that much, which is normal towards the end of a bull market, the subject of debt has taken a back step. In other words, people mention the government debt, but then they argue, well, it's so large already, and so far it hasn't caused any damage. It can expand much further, and the Fed can expand its balance sheet much further, and so forth. So these things is what people believe, but may in fact not help asset prices. In fact, they may depress asset prices.
Can you expand on why you see cryptocurrencies falling in the future and people moving out of that space?
Well, I didn't say they will fall. My sense is that I, as a citizen, have no idea what these cryptocurrencies should be worth. I have really no idea. It's a little bit like you and I. We would print a new currency or a new banknote, say a $500 banknote or a $1 million banknote or whatnot, and we would restrict the number of bills that we would print to, say, 1 million or 10 million or 20 million, whatever. And our neighbor, seeing that we were able to sell these freshly printed banknotes, he says, that's a great idea. I start my own printing machine. He prints also something like new paper currency, and so on and so forth. And the crypto craze has created now more than 1,500 different cryptocurrencies. And whether they will all be worth anything, that is a big question. I have my reservations about that. Now, can the one or the other have some value? Yeah, maybe. But I don't know what the value will be. And if I have no idea what the value will be, I'm not terribly interested to invest a large amount of money in this concept.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Dr. Faber. I think there was an academic study about Mt. Gox and the price of Bitcoin going from $150 to $1,000. And you can Google it. I think it's called price manipulation in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And it's a long academic study about the data. And no one was, except for the people who ran Mt. Gox, no one got indicted for this. So my hunch is that Bitcoin traders were just simply emboldened. And if you look at the concentration of who owns Bitcoins, it's only 1,000 or so who own about 40% of the Bitcoin in the world. So for them to collude together and ramp the price up and down and make money in futures now on the COMEX, it's possible to make money both ways. So
yeah, sure, that I can envision.
Yeah.
As I say, I don't know how much it will be worth.
Right.
And what I have observed, however, and that should be a warning signal. I have a house here in the north of Thailand, specifically in Chiang Mai. And Chiang Mai is a city that consists mostly of people who have no share ownership. Mm-hmm. They never owned a single bond. Mm-hmm. They never trade foreign exchange. And there's just a few, maybe, like a handful of people that I would know that occasionally trade stocks. Mm-hmm. But the bulk of people don't have any interest in stocks, have no money to buy stocks, and so forth and so on. If they have money, they will buy a house. Mm-hmm. But all these people, over the last, say, 1 year, people who never speculated, they are now all involved in cryptocurrencies. And this is not just happening here in Chiang Mai. I get emails from people in Estonia. I get emails from people in Hungary and so forth, in Korea, in China, everywhere, in Japan. They all gamble on these cryptos. Mm-hmm. And whenever the public is so fully involved in one object of speculation, it's always a warning signal. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the future will tell. I don't want to say anything negative about cryptos. I don't want to say anything positive. Mm-hmm. I think the blockchain technology is here to stay, mm-hmm. but it's not new. This was developed before. And I have no idea about the end value of cryptos. I suppose that 90 to 98% of cryptos currency will be worthless. Mm-hmm. But maybe the one or the other will have some value.
Now, moving on here, you said you're, if I heard you right, you're bullish on gold and you think that people will move into gold and silver. What is your perspective on which is better, gold or silver?
Well, right now, from my technical indicators I watch, I think silver has probably the greater upside potential. But I'd like to qualify my bullishness by saying I have been buying gold since the late 1980s. Most of the gold I bought was around $300 an ounce, and I continued to buy during the bull market between 1999 and 2011. And I continue to buy. I've never sold an ounce of gold. For me, the price, whether it's here or goes lower or higher, doesn't change my lifestyle. But I want to have some reserves that are not held in paper form. And I hold some gold in Switzerland and some here in Asia.
Hey, Dr. Faber, just to drill down on that for a minute, is there a specific type of gold bullion that you prefer? I assume you own gold bullion outright.
Yeah, I own physical gold, yes. Mm-hmm. And some physical, but it's in coin form, like Krugerrand, or there are some coins issued by Credit Suisse or so. So these are type of essentially pure gold investments.
Great, thank you.
I also got some gold shares.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but not much.
Right. Just for a little.
The gold shares will have a huge move, mm-hmm. but it hasn't happened yet. I think they are again in a range from which they could have, say, a 30% upside move.
All right. Well, Marc Faber, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, did you want to share with the viewers any last thoughts you had and where we can find you online?
Well, we have a website, and thank you for asking. The website is called www.gloomboomdoom.com, all in one word. And thank you for having me on your program.
All right. Thank you so much, and we'd love to have you back on again sometime.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.